Welcome to all the fanfare. My name is Eric Pierce, and I'm just trying to remember how to do this because it's been a minute since I've done a podcast, but I've been wanting to get back to it. And this feels like the perfect time to dip my toes back in because this is a topic that's been on my mind for a bit, and I can't stop thinking about it. And then we got some hot and juicy news yesterday about the new Avengers film. And so on one hand, they get me right back with some of the news. But on the other hand, it's still kind of couched by this just kind of overall malaise with the MCU. And that's where I want to jump in. And by the way, I'm just going to do this straight off the cuff. Part of the reason I stopped podcasting as much as I did is it was taking away time from writing. And part of that is because I'm a bit of a mess when it comes to verbally talking. I do great when I can write something down and edit it and make it all sound good. But to make a crisp and clean podcast required more editing than I wanted to spend time on. And so I was devoting more of the time to writing. But I do want to get back to podcasting because I like it. I like the form. I like the free-form nature, just talking. So that's what this is. I'm going to do this kind of, like I said, straight off the cuff, no editing or anything, and just talk. And yeah, I want to talk about the MCU. A couple of weeks ago, I did a review for the new Captain America film, Brave New World, and it was kind of lamenting the film, but also just the state of the MCU in general. And kind of my, apart from the head fake that Marvel did with that film where they made it look like they're going to mirror America as it is, but then not address any of the issues of America as it is. Just in terms of the Marvel movie, it really dropped the ball with setting up Sam as Captain America. Where's the Avengers? Why did he not assemble the Avengers? Why is he not spending time? If you want to sidestep the racial stuff, I guess I get it, but at the minimum, he should have been spending time rebuilding the Avengers, knowing that Avengers Doomsday is just around the corner. We've got no Avengers for this movie that's called Avengers. We're going to come to that. But just in general, Brave New World is just a reflection of the hot mess that the MCU is these days. I went back and looked at the list of Phase 4 and Phase 5. Yeah, we're in Phase 5 now. Phase 4 and Phase 5 films and TV shows to just kind of identify like where did this thing go off the tracks. I think most of us can agree the Endgame was like the high water mark, like the ultimate climax to this Marvel thing, this MCU. And it's been more or less downhill since. So I'm just going to run down the list of what we got since Endgame. And I'm just going to roughly grade these in three categories. Was it good? Was it bad? Or was it unfinished? Or did I not watch it because the vibes were not good or I just was not interested? I think the story that's told by that is kind of interesting. So let me just run through these with maybe just a couple brief comments. Phase 4. So we start off with Black Widow. I liked the film. I love Natasha. Marvel really shot themselves in the foot, though, when they made a Black Widow film after Black Widow was dead. By the way, spoilers. But at the same time, I enjoyed it. So I'm going to call that a good film. Shang-Chi. I enjoyed the movie. It's kind of... It seems like it was made like 8 years ago, 10 years ago, because it feels so distant. But I liked the movie, so I rated that as a good. Eternals, never watched it, still haven't watched it. Don't care. And this is not necessarily the sign that Marvel was losing their story thread, but it is the first Marvel's thing that I just didn't even show up for, which is unprecedented and would become something that I would do more frequently as we go on, as you'll see. Spider-Man No Way Home. I've only seen it the one time. I really liked it. Granted, it gets a ton of mileage out of nostalgia, which I'm weak toward, but I did like it, so that's a good. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is a bad film. It just goes way out of its way to make Scarlet Witch a bad character and do things uncharacteristic to her just so they could make a horror movie in Marvel. I get what they're trying to do. It sucks. Thor Love and Thunder. This is the worst film in the MCU in my opinion. I hate this movie. It is irredeemable, far worse than Thor: The Dark World, which everyone always held up as the worst MCU film. Thor: Love and Thunder, just terrible. And then Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's a good movie. It's not great. It's nowhere near the original Black Panther, but I enjoyed it well enough, so I call that a good. And then the TV series, WandaVision, it's fine. I'm gonna rate it as a good, but it's not like amazing. Like everyone was always breathless just talking about all the craziness the show was doing with the way it made it look like a TV show, and then how the show was progressing from like black and white through like sitcoms and such. I'll be honest, I didn't really love it, but it was fine. So I'm rating that as a good. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I like this a lot. It's a good. Hawkeye. Hawkeye's a big joke in the MCU to the point where Hawkeye makes fun of himself because he's a joke. But I actually really like the miniseries, and that's a good for me. And then this is where it starts to go off the rails. Moon Knight, I'm calling that a bad. I didn't really care for it. It was fine, but it was just not great. It was a little weird. And then Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, these were both ones that I started and then didn't finish because they just weren't good. They didn't speak to me. Maybe it's a me thing, but they didn't speak to me. And it was actually with Moon Knight where, so up to that point, MCU was appointment viewing. Like in the theaters, we went there, if not day of, like the first weekend, opening weekend, to see these movies. All the ones I listed, those are ones we saw opening weekend, other than the Eternals, which I still haven't seen. And the same thing with the TV shows. Disney Plus, we had it, and we were watching week to week. We were there, so we were suffering through WandaVision, trying to figure out what this thing is. We were getting excited about Falcon Winter Soldier and Hawkeye, and this was something my whole family did. We sat down, we'd watch these shows every week, and it was cool. But then Moon Knight, my daughter was the first one to check out because she's like, this is dumb. And I stuck with it out of brand loyalty, so did my wife and son, but by the end of it, I was like, yeah, she's right. And then Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, like my wife and I were the only ones that tried those, and eventually we didn't even finish those. And that was really the point at which, for us, like Marvel started becoming this optional thing that we sometimes did, but it wasn't like this thing that we watched every time. We didn't come for all of it because it wasn't worth it. Like it wasn't what made Marvel special. Had been lost, had been literally watered down with all this content and these characters, and like Marvel's proven that they can do good storytelling with really crazy characters like a talking raccoon in a tree, but at the same time, like these shows just were not hitting the marks. So according to my kind of rough grading scale here, I have in phase 4 I had 7 good projects, 3 bad, and then 3 that were unwatched / unfinished. So that's my rough grading scale. You're going to see a huge change in those numbers here when we get into phase 5. So going through the films first, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, terrible film. That's a bad, easy. Guardians 3, I liked it. It's fine. It's a fine closing chapter. It's one of the only good movies in phase 5, which says a lot about phase 5. So that's a good for me. The Marvels, still haven't seen it. Don't really care about it. It's kind of a bummer because I liked Captain Marvel, the movie, and the character. I like Brie Larson. But man, like I just cannot get excited about this movie, and I feel like the tone or the direction they've gone with a lot of this stuff feels forced, and I don't know, I just wasn't interested. Deadpool and Wolverine, I really liked it. Surprisingly, like I showed up for it, went to theater to see it, and yeah, I really liked it. I was actually moved by it, and granted, it was the nostalgia bits that got me when they brought back all these characters, but I did like that, so that's a good for me. Captain America Brave New World, that's a bad movie. It's a really bad movie. It's a bottom third easily, maybe bottom 5. Just and it sucks because I really like Anthony Mackie, and I think there was an opportunity to do something unique with his Captain America, or at least make him Captain America versus he's Falcon in a new suit, and he is called Captain America, but he's not really leading anybody other than his sidekick. And this was an opportunity to do something, and they just botched it. And the last film of phase 5 is Thunderbolts, which I am I'm ridiculously excited to see, because to me it evokes like peak Marvel, which is for me Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That's the best Marvel film in my opinion. And yeah, the Bucky Barnes of it, but just kind of the tone and tenor where there's action and there's humor, and the way it's shot, the way it looks, it just looks like the kind of MCU that I sign up for, at least. So I'm excited about that one, but TBD on whether or not it's going to be good. We'll find out here in a couple months. On the TV front, I haven't watched any of the Marvel shows on Disney Plus in Phase 5. So that's Secret Invasion, which I heard was horrible. Loki Season 2, which I heard was good, but Season 1 was kind of all over the place, and Tom Hiddleston aside, like, it was just okay. So I don't know. So I haven't tuned in for the Loki Season 2, which I guess I missed Loki Season 1 in my TV ratings for Phase 4. It was good, for sure. Echo, I never watched it. Don't really care about it. Honestly, like, if we were going to do any spin-off show from any character from the Hawkeye show, I would have much rather have seen, was it her name, Kate Archer? Haley Steinfeld's character. She was awesome. Why not have a spin-off for her? But whatever. Agatha All Along, I heard it's good. Again, I don't know. It's a spin-off of a spin-off. Whatever. I don't care about it, really. I'll probably watch it because I heard it's good eventually. Daredevil Born Again. This is the one that I'll probably start soon because I love the Netflix show. I've heard the Disney Plus series is mixed at best, but I love the characters enough that I want to tune in and see. And then last but not least here on this list, Ironheart, which is due to release here in a couple months. And it picks up one of the characters from the Black Panther 2. Essentially, she's kind of like the new Tony Stark in that she builds a suit. I mean, I would have been excited to see that show a couple years ago after Black Panther. Now it's kind of like, why now? But in general, Phase 2 TV or Phase 5 TV, I haven't watched any of these shows. Don't really care to watch any of them. And that's just kind of my whole deal with the MCU right now. If I just look at my informal scoring for Phase 5, I've got 2 shows I considered good, 2 shows I considered bad, and 7 that I haven't watched or haven't watched or finished, but I haven't watched any of them. And if you compare that to Phase 4, what I only had 3 that I didn't watch or were left unfinished. So go from 3 to 7, like the MCU at this point is just, like, my heart's still there. I still have fond memories of, like, MCU at its peak, but it feels so optional now that it used to be appointment viewing, and it used to be like everything was integral. And with all the rush to make content for Disney Plus largely, but even the films, it just, you lost the necessity to see it, and it all just feels optional. And like, I'm going to go into these Avengers Doomsday, which we're going to talk about here in a second. I'm going to have not watched a ton of this stuff leading up to that, and I don't care. And like, if there's stuff that I maybe quote unquote miss, like for instance in Brave New World, there's a huge plot point about the Celestials, I believe is what they're called, from the Eternals, and there's like a giant corpse in the ocean that people are mining because it has adamantium. I didn't see the Eternals. I don't care about the Eternals. I happen to know that comes from the Eternals, but I'm not probably going to go back and watch it just because of that. And that was what made the MCU special in its heyday, was that it all tied together. You watched it all, and it built toward this crescendo. And I feel like Marvel's definitely lost that. But so looking ahead now to Phase 6, and this is where this pod's really going to pivot. We've got four films, only 4, so short phase in terms of films. The first one is Fantastic Four, which releases this summer. I don't know. A lot of people are super excited about Fantastic Four. I'll be honest. They feel super like old-fashioned and almost out of touch. And I'm probably going to regret these words, but like, I'm just not. I'm not there for it. Like, I don't love the Fantastic Four. Like, I read all the comics back in the day, and I love comic books. I enjoy the Fantastic Four fine. Johnny's my favorite character of the 4. But yeah, the film, I don't know. Like, I think the trailer looks good, looks interesting, but it's not one that necessarily speaks to me. So I'm definitely gonna go see it, but I'm not breathless over it like some fans are. After that, next year, May 2026, we get Avengers Doomsday, and this is the one where they're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. So he's back. RDJ's back. He's playing the villain, and kind of the cognitive dissonance of making the face of the MCU, the hero of the MCU for 10 or 12 years, now turning him into this villain is a little strange. And granted, and he's only back for 2-picture deal, so this is going to be short-lived. And it all just kind of ties into this feeling with the MCU is they've lost sight of the long game and are now just playing for short-term wins. And Doctor Doom, I love Doctor Doom. He's one of the best villains in Marvel. And to kind of tie him to RDJ, which then means that you're only going to get him for these 2 films and then you're done with him. It feels so short-sighted to me. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because they did so well with the first 3 phases of the MCU that they've earned that still, even after all these blunders. But I'll be honest, like, the vibes aren't good. A couple months after that, we get Spider-Man 4. And then in 2027, we get Avengers Secret Wars, which is the second part of the Doom saga, I guess is what I'm calling it. And then there's some phases. There's some TV shows in Phase 6. Some of them, I don't know, there's like 5 or 6. And there's some animated films in there, whatever. I don't care about any of them. Like, I looked at the names, didn't really recognize any of them. Frankly, didn't care about any of them. And again, that's just the state of the Marvel TV experience, which is a huge bummer because I think there was real potential to do something special there, and they ruined it. At least for me, like, it's gonna take something special to bring me back to Disney Plus to watch Marvel on Disney Plus. But the films still speak to me. And talking about the films, just yesterday, Marvel announced the initial list of 26 characters that are in this movie, and I say initial because the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that this isn't even the full cast. The quote that I'm pulling here is that even with 26 actors announced, Marvel wasn't done revealing the entire cast. So we may get more characters. We probably are going to get more characters, maybe some surprises before the film comes out next year. But I just want to run through some of these announcements because I'll be honest, after everything I just said about how I feel about the MCU, like, this stuff still gets me. Like, I'm all like, I'm there. I'm fired up about some of this stuff, and yeah. So let's just touch on it. So this is talking about who's going to be in Avengers Doomsday. So the film coming out May of 2026 with Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. These are the heroes that we're getting. Thor and Loki are back. We're getting Captain America. This would be Sam Wilson's Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and also the new Falcon. We're getting Shuri. I can say her name fine, but now that I'm recording myself, I can't actually say it. Shuri. Oh my gosh. You know what I'm talking about. Black Panther's sister, M'Baku, and Namor from the Black Panther films. We're getting the entire Fantastic Four. We're getting the Thunderbolts, plus or minus one character who I assume is probably therefore gonna die in the Thunderbolts movie, which comes out in a couple months and predates then this Doomsday. She's missing from the list, and so presumably she's gonna die in this movie. So spoilers, sorry I said she, but anyway, we'll move on from there. The one that really got me was they're bringing back the OG X-Men, and by OG I mean the 2000 era X-Men films. So Professor X, Magneto, Cyclops, Mystique, Nightcrawler, Beast. Those characters played by the original actors. So for Professor X, that's Patrick Stewart. It's James Marsden for Cyclops / Scott Summers, which my wife is going to be thrilled about because she was a James Marsden as Cyclops fangirl. And in addition to those 6 or so that I listed, we're also getting Channing Tatum is reprising Gambit, which he played in Deadpool and Wolverine last year. So we're getting this huge X-Men squad, and I love the 2000 era's X-Men movies, and up until the third one, and then Days of Future Past. When they come back, it's such a great moment. the fact that they're coming back to this movie, it is interesting they went with the OG X-Men versus the younger iterations, because they've recasted Professor X and Magneto and Mystique and Beast. We have younger versions of all those characters, but it doesn't have the emotional weight and resonance. And again, this is just the nostalgia of it. But yeah, like this is just, to me, this is why these movies are so exciting. This is why I like them, is the characters. Like, I love these characters. And then, oh, by the way, in addition to all these team ups, so we have everything everyone I ran through is part of like a unit or a team, even like Thor and Loki, those are your Asgardians. We have a couple of people just soloing it. So we've got Ant-Man and Shang-Chi are also part of the cast. And these are just the characters we know about. But it's so silly. But just this news yesterday just got me all fired up about this movie. That, again, I feel reservations about the movie and about how Marvel feels like it's rushing into it. But just looking at who's going to be in it, it does my geek heart good. There are some notable omissions. And again, we may get some of these characters because Marvel isn't done revealing their presence for us yet. But right off the top, no Spider-Man, no Captain Marvel, no Doctor Strange. Those feel like the big three, like in terms of like who's who in the Marvel universe. It's definitely those three. They're not on this list. I would assume they'd show up in the sequel, Avengers Secret Wars, but at least for now, they're not on the cast list. Of the X-Men, there's no Storm, so I assume we're not getting Halle Berry. Like, she's not coming back. If she was coming back, now's the time to announce that. Obviously, no Wolverine and no Deadpool. Maybe we'll get them in the sequel. Maybe we won't. Honestly, I don't really want Deadpool in this movie, and I don't know what Deadpool in a non-Deadpool movie looks like, because the Deadpool movies are so from his point of view, with the fourth wall breaking and everything. I don't know that you can do that in a non-Deadpool movie, and I don't know. I don't want them to do that in a non-Deadpool movie. I don't want Deadpool's Deadpoolness in my Avengers. Like, keep his peanut butter out of my chocolate when it comes to Avengers stuff. So Deadpool can just stay in his stuff, stay in his lane. I'll be honest though, I love Wolverine, so I would be happy to see him show up in this or the sequel. And then we've got some OG Avengers that are no shows here: Hulk, Hawkeye, Nick Fury, Scarlet Witch. I think apart from maybe Fury, it kind of feels like Marvel's moved away from these guys, like they're quiet quitting them. Likewise, the Guardians, I don't think we're going to see them again. And I'm fine with that. I think they've all had their time in the sun, and they're older characters, Scarlet Witch aside. I would like to see Scarlet Witch back, but the rest of them, I feel like, been there, done that, and I'm fine just kind of putting them on the shelf. But the other one is Chris Evans. He I heard a rumor that he's maybe coming back. Granted, you can't believe everything here, and I don't think Marvel is stupid enough to bring him back as Captain America and just totally take Sam Wilson's knees out as the new Captain America. So I hope it's just a rumor. I think, Chris Evans, Captain America, had like the perfect send-off. Why would you ruin that? Let's just let him be off with Peggy in the 1940s, 1950s, and let that be what it is. So I'm hoping that that's just a rumor and not something that Marvel is actually going to do. But I guess we'll find out here in the next couple months when Marvel starts revealing the rest of this enormous cast list. So it's just crazy looking at the cast, though. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I would play with my action figures, and you would just combine them in these enormous battles. And that was always just kind of an echo of what I saw in the comics when they did these enormous team ups, and you had your Avengers next to your Fantastic Four and your X-Men, and they're all good guys, so they're all on the same side against the bad guys, but there was, always some inner group conflict. I'm just really excited to see how this takes shape. That said, I do still have some concerns about just the state of the MCU and where this is going. I think when you look at, so they're doing, we're going to get Avengers Doomsday just over a year. And then a year after that, we're getting Secret Wars. So they're going to kind of go with it has the same vibe of what they did when they had Infinity War and Endgame. You had the Infinity War as the setup, Endgame as the payoff, and it was this two halves of one story setup, really, is what it was. But the reason it worked so well is because we had those other 20-some movies of setup where we established who these characters are, and we built this narrative, and with Thanos like in the background and the stones and all this stuff was circling, and sometimes it wasn't as done as well, but it was there. And they don't have that this time. Like, yes, they have all those other movies. We know who these characters are. They've had their origin stories, so a lot of the heavy lifting is done. But I can't escape the feeling that Marvel's just kind of rushing into this without any of the care or forethought that they had previously. That was the bedrock of their success. And in fact, we know that's true because Kang the Conqueror was going to be the big bad, and then they pivoted once Jonathan Majors turned out to be an enormous asshole and abusive. They had to pivot and find a new big bad, so they went with Doctor Doom. They gave Robert Downey Jr. a ton of money to come back, and so now they're rejiggering this whole story on the fly. And yeah, you can kind of see that, okay, Marvel now owns the Fantastic Four. They now own the X-Men, so they can bring the groups together in a way that they couldn't before for contractual reasons. And so you can see that, okay, they're going to have some multiversal shenanigans to bring these characters into one universe. So then they have all their action figures together and they can play with them however they want. And I understand that and can see that. But I still can't escape the feeling that they're just rushing this too much. And they're trying to recapture the crown that they held in like the Endgame 2019 with Endgame. But it feels like they're just rushing into it. They're rushing into like an Infinity War without really establishing who these characters are. Like, we don't even have the Fantastic Four movie yet. They are going to be a part of this movie, and presumably a big part, because they're the next phase of the MCU, really. I think they're going to be positioned as the new Avengers in terms of like clout in the MCU. And then you got the old school X-Men. And the fact that the audience knows who these characters are, I feel like that's a shortcut. You can't shortcut your story just because of presumed knowledge that the audience comes with. You still have to do the work of establishing who these characters are in relation to each other, how they come together, and short of like a 3 or 4 hour movie, I don't know how you do that in Doomsday with all these 26 characters plus some we don't know yet. And I just can't escape the feeling that they're gonna blow it. And I'm gonna go see it. Like, I'm gonna love seeing it. I'm sure just the kid in me is gonna love seeing all these characters together on screen. And yeah, by the way, like, some of these characters are definitely gonna die, because if you want to make Doctor Doom out to be a big bad, you have to take some of these guys out. So presumably some or a lot of these characters are gonna bite the bullet. And I don't know if there's going to be an unsnapping where they can bring them back, but I expect that, the best way to show Doctor Doom is like a big bad mofo is you take a character that is tough and you kill him, right? Doctor Doom takes him out. We saw at the beginning of Infinity War, like, Hulk is the Hulk, right? And he's undefeated, other than Thor, he's undefeated. And then Thanos just puts him down like it was no thing. And that really made you realize, like, okay, Thanos he's a force to be reckoned with. And like the Avengers are going to, have their hands full. You're going to need something like that for Doom. And I think killing some characters is definitely going to be the shock and awe factor. So I'm excited about the film. Looking at the character list gets me really jazzed. And I think the next 3 years of the MCU are going to be one of the most exciting periods we've had since the Endgame period. But I do feel like Marvel is sacrificing some of what this could be in favor of the short term. Let's get the Marvel brand, let's get the MCU back where it was, or at least something like back where it was. And right, because right now it's down in the dumps, and that just bums me out more than anything. But that's that. I guess I've talked this one to death. I'm probably going to do another one of these about Star Wars, and maybe I'll just call this the State of the MCU, and then I'll do another one in a week or two about the State of Star Wars, because I've had similar thoughts on my mind about Star Wars. Granted, if you know me, you know Star Wars is never far from my mind, but I think this is kind of a good use of this podcast format. I think it's just kind of talking out loud some of the things I'm thinking and feeling about these things that I love, and just sharing those with you guys in a less polished format versus writing. And so let me know what you think about this, and I'll check you guys later. Peace out.